Bashal Tootin and Luther Burden get some additional work, and everything else we saw in Week 11. That's what we're going to talk about today. I'm Stealing Bananas. I'm Ben Gretch. You can find the Stealing Signals newsletter, bengretch.substack.com. With me, as always, is Shawn Siegele. You can find all of his great work at RotoViz. A longer day today with the international game with only 2 buys. We're back to a fuller week this week. It was a long day of football watching, Shawn. We're getting down to the nitty-gritty. There's a lot happening. There was a lot of disappointing scores today, some weather games, some win games. I have some teams, some solo teams, some other teams that didn't score a lot of points. I have some opponents that I'm playing that didn't score a lot of points. I have some teams that did score. And it seems like there's a wide range this week. But there's some that are like duds. On both sides. There was a lot of players that were duds, good players that are in lineups this week. And then there's some fun stuff. I mean, it makes the Travion Henderson Thursday night game that much more exciting. Get 3 touchdowns out of him, get a 30-burger on Thursday night, and then have a Sunday like this where there was definitely some good stuff, but there was plenty of other stuff as well. And then some surprising stuff, like our guy Shawn Tucker. We spent all of last year talking about him. I mentioned him to you. Were just watching that game when we were texting before the show. I mentioned to you, he kind of drove me nuts because I wrote an input volatility that I didn't really understand it. Bills are big home favorites. He's a
Ben. There's nothing to understand. There's nothing to understand. Right. I want to throw out there first that I've been writing about Shawn Tucker for multiple seasons. He was in the 0 RB countdown before last season. When I say before last season, I don't mean the beginning of last season. I mean 2 years ago. And I don't want to cut off your description of this game, but I do want to point out, and in all fairness, they've gotten to be so boring that at this time of the night, I have not yet completed the Panthers game, which hopefully featured more fireworks than usual, because usually there are none. I haven't yet completed the Jaguars game. So I did see the Bashal Tootin score pop up. I'm hoping there'll be more of that somehow. But Baker Mayfield has been the head coach maker. And when these guys leave Tampa Bay, it becomes very clear that it was about Baker Mayfield. And that's true in a variety of ways. But the fact that Shawn Tucker, who is very clearly one of the best 15 running backs in the NFL, has been, and you can say, look, the 3rd touchdown was a receiving touchdown, right? Looked fantastic. He's one of the faster backs in the NFL. He's thick. You have thick, you have size, you have speed, you have great instincts. The fact that the Buccaneers, and I think you have to put some of this on Todd Bowles too, who's one of my favorite coaches, favorite people. The fact that they would play him behind, that's the word. Ben, I'm so fired up. I can't think of the word behind Rachaad White, who was legitimately a practice squad level talent. It boggles the entire imagination. And
that was the whole conversation all last year, is that the backfield had to move toward being Bucky and Tucker, and there were so many high-value touches that even a split between the two would be very lucrative for both. It ended up still being pretty lucrative for White and Bucky last year. There's been maybe a little bit less overall high-value touches this year. The offense was just so high-scoring last year, and the Liam Cohen stuff. There was so much passing to the backs that there still is this year, but not quite as much. But Bucky's been hurt for months, and Shawn Tucker has been not in a very big role. He gets into a little bit more of a role the last 2 weeks, so a lot of people wrote him up and were excited about adding him. As I was asking around a little bit to try to understand that, one of the things that I was told is a lot of those waiver articles are written Monday. Bucky being at practice Tuesday was a little bit surprising. People thought he might be out for multiple more weeks. And then it was he might actually play. He doesn't end up playing. And then, but later in the week, we find out there's a lot of wind in Buffalo. And so you're okay, maybe they're going to be pretty run heavy. And they were. They were extremely run heavy. They throw the ball 28 times. They run 39 times in a game that they were mostly leading. They wind up, it was very neutral, but they wind up losing by double digits. But it's close throughout. And their game plan was very much, we're going to run the ball. We're going to pound the rock. It becomes a Shawn Tucker game. And if you were in on Shawn Tucker moving forward the last couple of weeks because of some carries, then, more power to you. For me, it was okay, well, he's been getting more carries. But, the question I was asking people was, why now? Why are people so excited about him now? Because I felt like I was talking about him every week last year and felt like in writing about him and getting questions about why I'm so into this guy who's basically playing no snaps. And even last week where he got a few more carries, he only played like 23% of the snaps, I think it was. Like Rachaad White was still over 70%. And now this is the game where Sean Tucker played significantly more snaps. I don't have the snap counts yet, but it was very clear that Sean Tucker was out there a lot closer, probably at least 50% or relatively close. He's going to get more touches per snap because he's an early down rusher. He's clearly the more talented rusher than Rachaad White. And obviously they like White on, the pass blocking and the receiving roles and some of those things. But they've left him on the field, White, for everything because of that for more than a year now, since the last time Sean Tucker did this. He had 196 yards and 2 touchdowns in week 6 of last year. I just went back and looked at it. 196
and that's a reminder for
yards.
anyone who thinks this is the start of something.
Yeah, that's exactly right. He had 200 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns in week 6 of last year and got 6 touches the next week, and then 3 the week after that, and then 2, and then 0 the next 4 weeks. The guy had 200 yards and 2 touches, and they just didn't use him again. They're like, all right, we're good.
Ben, this was a game that was 44-32, and outside of Josh Allen, which is fairly obvious, no one that you would have drafted off either of these teams. Again, 76 points. James Cook has an okay day, right? Doesn't hit his average for the season. No one else that you would have drafted into this game did anything. Tyrell Shavers, 4 for 90 and a touchdown. I mean, Ty Johnson has the 52-yard score. I was talking last week about how I couldn't fathom what the Bills had done because their roster is basically Josh Allen and nothing. And for all the criticism I give the Chiefs, and I certainly have a lot more after another dispiriting game against the Broncos, at least the Chiefs have lots of other great players. The Bills have Josh Allen and nothing, and yet for the last 2 years, they've been working away from Josh Allen as the team's identity. It's great to see Josh Allen as the identity of the Buffalo Bills in week 11 of the 2025 season as they are running out the clock on his prime. This is what they have to be. I mean, you're Josh Allen, right? The whole move and he throws a couple picks in this game. You have all of the things that got the previous coordinator fired. You have Brady in there. He's been absolutely terrible as an offensive coordinator for them. Finally starting to get some criticism recently. And everybody's like, you know what we should do before this whole thing goes down in flames and everyone gets fired is we should let Josh Allen play.
I mean, but you also get the element where on like the second snap from scrimmage, he's worried about getting a safety, so he does a chest pass to a defensive player for an interception at the 10-yard line. And
they scored 44 points.
No, he was incredible. He was incredible. You're right. That deep ball to Shavers, a little bit of an extended play, just chucks it. And it's like the defense doesn't realize how far I can throw the ball. I'm going to throw it way over their heads, and it's going to be a touchdown. And it is. And it's like that's like a flag football play where like the safeties are like, I'm not deep enough because I didn't expect that you could throw it that far. But you don't usually see that in the NFL. Perfect pass. I mean, contrast that to our guy, Patrick Mahomes, who they obviously came out of the bye and decided they're going to go deep a bunch.
Just can't do it. Can't do it. Xavier Worthy wide open.
Two steps behind the defense, and he overthrows him by like 5 yards again. I mean,
give him a chance. Give him some kind of chance.
And he was kind of doing that diagonal thing that I've talked about before where the miss is flat. Like, let him curl his route. The defender's going to have a hard time because he's trailing upfield. He just threw it way upfield. And then he tries to go deep to Tyquan Thornton a few minutes later. Thornton's not as open, but he still overthrows it. And then he tries to go deep to Worthy again. Worthy's not quite as open that time either. He draws a defensive pass interference, but again, overthrows it. He ends up completing one to Thornton later. Patrick Mahomes is bad at throwing the deep ball now. And I don't know. I mean, maybe some people will say
Tyreek Hill told you this on his podcast, and we all laughed at him.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, everything else Tyreek Hill has said has also been like right on the money. He's a very reliable source.
Yeah. But Shawn, the one thing we do know about the Chiefs is they did not need Breece Hall today. Tony Romo.
Say what you want about Breece Hall. Trade for Sean Tucker.
Trade for Sean Tucker. Tony Romo was begging them to run twice in a row. And I'm like, why would you ever do that if all you have is Kareem Hunt? I thought maybe coming out of the bye, I had told you Brashard Smith's one of the guys I did not want to cut anywhere, to just see if some of the unwillingness to trade for Breece Hall is because they felt like they had an ace up their sleeve coming out of the bye. They're going to use this rookie a little bit more. Nope. 13 carries for Kareem Hunt in this game. No carries for any other running backs. Pacheco obviously still out. They're waiting for him to come back so they can have 2 bad running backs instead of 1. No interest in using the 4-3 rookie. No interest in trading for, one of the best running backs in the league at a very reasonable price. They'd rather just go to 5-5 and lose to the Broncos in a game that they shouldn't have lost.
And Ben, this is a game where they had nothing, right? They have Xavier Worthy getting open pretty easily throughout the first 3 quarters. He is missed constantly by Patrick Mahomes. There's a play middle of the second half where he doesn't react the way that Mahomes wants on a back shoulder throw. He doesn't play very much more after that as they go to a bunch of formations that are like just Rashee Rice and then a whole bunch of people who are irrelevant. I mean, that's how you get 9 for 91 and a touchdown to Travis Kelce. He's basically the only receiver that you put on the field, and you can't run the ball. I mean, you think about those two things in combination, right? The only guy you have on the field, and you can't run the ball. And people love Rashee Rice. I like Rashee Rice. I think in the right setup, he's going to score well. This is the Denver Broncos. The Chiefs have had a lot of tough matchups. You look at the strength of schedule, streamer, things are not great for the Chiefs from a forward-looking perspective, schedule-wise. Yeah, it's the Denver Broncos, but
their D wasn't unbeatable today. And Surtain's been out. That was embarrassing.
I mean,
Andy Reid coming out of a bye.
Rashee Rice is just a 2 yards and then run with the ball receiver. He doesn't open anything up for you unless you can throw the ball down the field to Worthy and, as you mentioned, Thornton. This was a game where the Chiefs finally capitulated, like, that bad contract we have for Hollywood Brown, we might as well run him out there and throw some passes to him because he's the only real receiver we think we have. Just everything about this game was humiliating. One of the things that was incredibly humiliating, you talk about Brashard Smith. I'm not sure how closely you were watching some of these plays because obviously we're pretty invested emotionally in Brashard Smith. They had like 3 different plays where they set up this entire complicated play ostensibly for Smith, and it turned out to be sleight of hand. They had a play where they have 3 receivers on the one side. They flare Brashard Smith out there. If they had actually just run the play where they tossed him the ball, he would have scored a walk-in touchdown from 30 yards out. Instead, it's a fake to that side and a throw back to Kareem Hunt, who is not a legitimate receiving back at this time in his career, and he gains like 2 yards. There were 3 different plays like that where if they had simply run a normal play to Brashard Smith, but instead they're faking off of him, which again, I mean, you're going to ask defenses to respect a player that you haven't used all season. You're faking off of him and then dumping it off to someone super slow. There's no aspect of that play design that makes any sense because, again, you're asking them to respect someone you haven't used. Even though he's actually the fast person, we're going to fake to that. We're going to set it up. We're going to have it blocked perfectly. We're going to have no defenders on that side of the field. We're still going to throw it back to someone like Noah Gray or Kareem Hunt over here on the other side. The play that essentially ended the game, he runs a wheel route, is wide open. He's the only possible person to throw to. Patrick Mahomes stares him down, refuses to throw it until the play is dead. It's like, you don't want to throw it to him, but he was the only person that was even involved in that play. And you combine that with the fact that they can't even line up now because Jawan Taylor, their $80 million right tackle, cannot line up. It's just a humiliating offense. Everything about it is absolute garbage.
Yeah, it's rough. Reid coming out of the bye and having this as the answer to a 5-4 start over the first 9 weeks, multiple tough losses, didn't have answers on key downs and key spots in most of those games. They're all 1-score losses in the first half. It's correctable stuff. You lose to the Chargers, Eagles. At the Jaguars was a tough one. They have a 99-yard pick 6 that really flips that game. At the Bills right before the bye, they're all 1-score losses. They lose another 1-score game here. They fall to 5-5. If you don't have answers in tight spots and your offense is also unwilling to go out and try to dominate teams the way that you used to 5 years ago with Patrick Mahomes, because you're not willing to even play the good players. You're playing Kareem Hunt, and you're throwing 13 times to Travis Kelce because the defense doesn't want to guard him. So you're like, yeah, he can't move. I mean, and Travis Kelce is a great game in this game. 9 for 91 and a touchdown. Hats off to him. But, I mean, that's not – you don't build your offense around Travis Kelce in 2025. None of this made any sense. The guys that got all the yards out of the bye were Travis Kelce, Kareem Hunt, a bomb to Tyquan Thornton, and Hollywood Brown. Rashee Rice is 5th on the team in yards with 38. Xavier Worthy is 6th with 25. Early in the game, they had some stuff in the first 15 where they were kind of featuring those guys, and I was like, okay, this is looking interesting. Maybe they're going to get some stuff going. The deep stuff, the air yards in the first quarter, then they kind of go away from that. They do hit one to Thornton, but I thought in the first quarter, I was like, oh, good, they're going to actually be vertical now again. The Rice stuff, most of his 9 targets were, hey, we're getting man coverage, and then Mahomes would just throw to him no matter what. He's covered, and he's like, oh, we'll throw him open or something. And I understand that's the guy that he trusts the most right now, but the connection wasn't there. Rice wasn't making a great play on the ball necessarily. There were a couple times he threw to Rice covered, and I saw other open receivers, and I'm like, I mean, you got to sometimes make that decision pre-snap sort of and get the ball out, but I'm sitting there watching that thinking, I mean, the ball's got to go somewhere else. He's sort of forcing it to Rashee Rice in a way that obviously up until this point, Rice has been a very effective receiver. This was a game where he was not very effective. 38 yards on 9 targets. Only really catches the sort of the handoffs, the extended handoffs, 6 catches for 38 yards. The 3 incomplete. There's only 3 incompletions, I guess, but at least one of those
was a bad drop, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
I mean, we get another game where Troy Franklin looks pretty good. Frankly, if, Bo Nix throws a better pass, he has a long touchdown.
I was going to say, though, before we switch to them, we've been talking about doing the coaching draft. You had mentioned Reed. Shawn, I said to you when you brought him up when we were talking to some of the coaches, he's 67. And our guy, Fantasy Douche, wrote that book, Game Plan, and talked about how head coaches were going to move younger because of the cognitive decline and some of those things. You look at what Bill Belichick's doing at UNC, and people are loving using that to work backward and invalidate his impact on the Patriots. No, dude, he's just super old.
Well, and college football is just completely different. It's just entirely about recruiting.
Yeah, but Andy Reid, I'm worried about, Shawn. He's 67 years old. I don't think he has the answers he used to have.
Man, you don't want to know how many spots he lost in my coaching draft today. It was not a couple.
It was not a couple. I'm gonna wherever you want to take him, you can have him because I'm not gonna draft him.
It was rough. If you've been holding or picking up Pat Bryant every time you have another player go to IR, which, I mean, players are going to IR all the time. Woke up either yesterday or today, whenever it was, and like, okay, well, Sam Laporta now on IR. Let's pick up someone else for him everywhere. Pat Bryant, 5 for 82. He looks good in this game. Tony Romo made some comments about, the coverage being rolled to Cortland Sutton and taking him away. And it's very believable that that's opening up Franklin, opening up Bryant. At the same time, Tony Romo was claiming that Travis Kelce looked 24 when he looked like 173. So I don't know, how much of that.
Okay, Tony Romo's big thing today was for 4 snaps after the pick 6, he could not stop talking about how he didn't think it was illegal contact. And I saw there's a bunch of social media reaction and stuff, which is going to be influenced by the analysts talking about it constantly. The contact happened at the beginning of the route. Mahomes didn't throw the ball until well later. Mahomes is definitely one of the quarterbacks that sees the flags that come in from the secondary. He sees the contact on the route. I'm not certain that he knew a flag was there, but he threw the ball right to the defender. He was about to get sacked, and he just threw it up like he knew he had a free play, like Aaron Rodgers would on.
This was the Kyler Murray interception, from the preseason, where he picked a spot with no offensive guys in a 15-yard radius and just softly tossed the ball up there. Right. That's a little bit unusual for a Patrick Mahomes type of pass. I mean, you can say all you want about Patrick Mahomes not throwing the deep ball well. That pass is unusual. That
should have been your tip-off. And he kept going, this is a play that changed the whole game. I'm like, I don't think that play happens unless the penalty's called. So you can take issue with the 5 yards and a first down, but I don't think you can say that because the Chiefs got a soft penalty, there wasn't an interception touchdown. Because I don't think the interception touchdown happens unless there's a guy in the defensive secondary throwing one of those yellow rags. Have you never, like, you're a former NFL quarterback.
I don't know, Ben. I got a number of teams that it just didn't make sense to pick up and play different defenses today because I have the Denver Broncos. And all of those teams think it was a bad call.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I mean, even if it was a bad call, my point is I think Mahomes takes a sack on that play. Took several sacks today. I don't think he throws the most horrendous INT I've ever seen him throw when it just seemed like he was like, I'm just going to put this ball up there. I mean, I'm quite sure he was immediately pointing too. They showed it. He's immediately pointing. Like when they were doing the return, he was like on the defense. I mean, I'm quite confident that he was aware that there was a flag thrown, which completely invalidates the analyst going on for 4 plays saying
it was also very clearly a penalty. So, I mean,
yeah, but he's going, if that wasn't a penalty, that's a game-changing penalty. That would have been a touchdown for the Broncos. That's not how any of this works. There's a chronology to things. One thing happens, then another thing happens. Like if there's not a penalty, there's not a touchdown. It's just, anyway.
You were mentioning the sacks. And I just had a random question for you because I've had a chance to peruse a few of the box scores here as we get going in. We had a game today between the two coaches who might go 1-2 in that coaching draft, where one quarterback who supposedly is an MVP frontrunner averaged less than 5 yards per attempt. The other QB, who I think is only mentioned ironically as an MVP contender, threw 4 picks and still put his team actually in position to win the game. How many sacks do you think they took combined?
I'm trying to think back to, I mean, I was watching that game closely. I don't feel like they took a lot of sacks.
0. They took 0 sacks.
0 combined sacks.
Argue that maybe they should have taken a few more sacks.
Maybe Sam Darnold should have taken a sack.
Sam Darnold's response when he's seeing ghosts is evidently to just throw back-breaking picks as opposed to take a sack. But I want to – like this game was fascinating. It was so much fun that – I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba, even when you get to the situation where the Rams are like, we're just going to stop him because the rest of the team on offense is terrible. Still ends up with 9 for 105. He makes a one-handed catch as he is tiptoeing down the sidelines. You have Puka, who in some ways almost lost this game for his team because it was, well, because it was a game where Sam Darnold threw 4 picks and they probably still should have lost because he does make the one mistake turning a ball over for the Rams. But he goes for 7 for 75 and also carries a couple of times. This was kind of a weird one where Kyren Williams, 12 for 91 and a touchdown, and is not very involved. The hilarious stat that I want to mention here, then this is a game, like Devontae Adams has good like scoring numbers again, but his catch rate and his drop numbers are off the charts, and he was dropping passes left and right in this game. He had 8 targets. The only pass that he caught was that forced touchdown. Wait, Devontae Adams is basically like a short yardage back where you have the contract. They're like, now you don't even have anything to prove because Cooper Kupp also did absolutely nothing on the other side, right? We're like, we paid this guy. We talk about all his leadership. Like, we got to get him a touchdown because he's only catch 1 pass out of 8.
Yeah, it's Ezekiel Elliott from the second time through on the Cowboys. The Rams do the 3 tight end stuff. I wrote about it a bunch this week, Shawn. It's been the big conversation through, football Twitter and all of these places. I know you're not as plugged in, so I'm curious how much you've actually seen all that stuff. But I
know that Terrence Ferguson can be a very exciting prospect and not catch a pass in this game and be the 4th out of the 4 tight ends who are involved.
Yeah, so
I do realize there are a lot of tight ends.
Yeah, there's a lot of tight ends, but the way they're doing it is they're still doing 11 personnel, I believe a little bit more than half, and then a little bit less than half, they go to 13 personnel. So they bring 3 tight ends on at the same time. They're attaching them to the line. It creates apparently more like gaps to run between. It forces the defense to have more gaps that they have to fill defensively. And then the big trend is that the throwing out of these multiple tight end formations, you can throw very effectively. You get defenses into the base formations and you throw against them. But the Seahawks, we talked about this on the show. I've been really optimistic about Mike Macdonald, both because they're doing that offensively, this easy button stuff with the multiple tight ends, and they're throwing out of it, and they're one of the teams exploiting it the most offensively. And then defensively, he has been matching these heavy tight end formations with nickel, with additional. And so basically saying, go ahead and run on us, which is what they did in this game. So the reason they can do that is they have Nick and Manwari, the really athletic safety that can basically come down and help with the run because he's this hybrid player they went out and drafted. The reason I think the McDonald stuff is so interesting, I mean, okay, so he didn't make the draft pick, McDonald, John Schneider did. You can give Clint Kubiak the credit for the offense, but they went ahead and fired Grubb and brought in Kubiak. And the guy that's in the middle of all of this is Mike Macdonald. Schneider's been there for 10 years. I mean, so you give his OC credit, maybe you give his GM credit for bringing in the right type of player through the draft to help the defensive scheme work. I think probably it all gravitates back towards McDonald, who's I think has his hands in all of this right now, and knew it from the offseason that this was going to be the next evolution. They needed that piece on defense. They needed, some of those things offensively when they went and drafted Elijah Arroyo, for example. And so anyway, the Seahawks are matching 13 personnel with nickel still. And you mentioned Kyron's running very effectively through the whole first quarter. But this is what I theorized last week in Stealing Signals was that the Rams would do less 13 personnel in this game because the Seahawks would just keep matching with nickel. And you can't just run forever. When a team is forcing you to run, even if you're running effectively, at some point you want to pass. And if you want to pass, you don't want to pass out of 13 personnel against a nickel. You just want to bring your wide receivers on the field. Like at that point, if they're going to play a nickel defense anyway, then you just want to get your better receivers on the field. The whole point of throwing out of 13 is that you can get weaker pass defenders on the field that way. And so that's essentially what happened in this game. They ran effectively early. I was kind of tracking it. They did a lot of 13. Greg Olsen emphasized in the fourth quarter that it's been a great day out of 11 for the Rams, that they started to do things out of 11 personnel effectively. And that's what I more or less theorized that they would do, that they would try to go back to their 11 personnel heavy offense and try to run that. I don't have all the data. It may prove that the 13 personnel stuff was even more efficient than the 11 personnel stuff, because I do know they were running very effectively. Kyron, like you said, was running very effectively. But I think the problem was you get into the spots where, like I have a note here, after mid third quarter, they throw 2 completions to Puka Nacua. I think it was out of 11. They go to 13 on first down, and Seattle gets a 3-yard loss on a run. We know this about running on early downs. If you don't stay ahead of the sticks, this is what teams want you to do. That one time that they can get you into 2nd and 13. Now they've now stunted your drive. Stafford throws incomplete on 2nd and 13 and 3rd and 13. Won't surprise you. He threw to Devonta Adams over the middle of the field. It was a little bit behind him. Adams wasn't able to bring it in. Should have caught it. But you get the drop there
on the ground.
He kind of threw it on the ground. You get the drop there, and that's what you're hoping for. In this bend don't break, you're forcing defenses to matriculate or offenses to matriculate the ball down the field. The stuff that we've talked about for multiple years that defenses are doing now, taking away explosives, forcing you to get first down after first down, and even if you can have a run advantage all game long, even if you can break long runs, it doesn't hurt a defense as much as it feels like. Like we are conditioned to see a 15-yard run and be like, that team's dominating right now. And they're just not. Like the Rams themselves, Sean McVay was like, yeah, Kyron's running. You gave the stat. That's why I went into this whole thing. Kyron's running extremely efficiently, and we don't want to do this anymore. We're going to go a different way.
Well, one of the things that happened in this game is they bring Blake Corum in, and he's extremely ineffective. And some of the kind of behind the scenes there would be interesting. Is that because of the way one of the things that always really frustrates me with the running backs, and one of the things I didn't really understand about what the Seahawks were doing, is that even though George Holani is good, like why is he in there for a couple of plays? This was a game where Kenneth Walker looked fantastic, but they've kind of taken him out of the rhythm for the entire season by not playing him very much. You shouldn't have a 12-8 split between Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, and Corum was bad enough in this game. And again, not every play is the same, right? You have situations where the defense approaches it differently. They have different packages in. You've got it blocked differently. It's not necessarily all on the running back. I do have to have my obligatory Jarquez Hunter mention now that we have all of these other rookie running backs that we were excited about breaking out. Like maybe he would be a little better fit as the number 2 back. But exactly what you're saying manifests in this game. And one of the things that then happens is that you have this really extreme split on third down. Now, we know that there are a lot of things that you can do. You had been mentioning to me that our old friend Nick Giffen has done lots of great stuff with the third down success, and how the natural variance there is going to give you some opportunities to play things going forward, perhaps. But even though we know that it's going to bounce around quite a bit, I think that when you're talking about the Rams, you're talking about a team that has Matthew Stafford playing extremely well. You have Puka Nacua. You have Sean McVay. They're playing at home. You're getting all of these picks. And then, I mean, it's an interesting, I think, question about who should feel better about this game. Should the Rams feel better about it because obviously they win? Winning in the current moment is obviously huge. The Rams now, in some ways, I think should be considered the Super Bowl favorite. And yet this is a game where Sam Darnold throws 4 picks, and Mike Macdonald, his players and himself are so good that they hold the Rams to 2 for 11 on third down and go 7 for 16 themselves, and have a kick that is missed pretty badly, but is within their kicker's range as time expires to win the game. Now, I don't think that if you have Sam Darnold as your QB, you can kind of come away from this game and be like, yeah, I mean, the QB played a bad game and we still had a shot to win there because we were so good at everything else. Because basically your takeaway is the same thing you've been saying all season, which is that as soon as the pressure is on Sam Darnold, he's going to fold. It's a huge problem if you're the Seahawks and that's your franchise quarterback. But everything else in this game is still very favorable for Seattle. The per play stuff is pretty even. So again, if you want to look back at that and say this was a fluky third down game, and if it's not fluky, the Rams win going away. The Seahawks have 79 plays to just 50 for the Rams. But again, that's because they were actually able to keep drives alive, where the Seahawks, even back on their heels because of all these picks, were able to make stops.
Yeah, I feel like every single week about where Seattle's been. We worked out how many snaps they've had, trailing, and it was interesting to hear Olsen talk about it on the broadcast, basically the exact same stuff. What I've been saying is that they've been able to stay ahead of game script. They've been able to run their sort of base offense where there's a threat of a run, and they run the ball so much they maintain that threat, and then they pass off of that, but they haven't been in these obvious pass situations. And Olsen was talking about it, how they were forced into difficult down and distance, obvious passing spots. They were down 2 scores in the fourth quarter, and we have not seen that from them. Remember, we were talking about this recently. I don't think they had – I think you helped me find a few snaps, but then we decided it was in the first half that they hadn't actually been down by more than a touchdown in the second half. They were down 2 scores. They were down whatever it was, 21-12 for – meaningful snaps in the fourth quarter and a little bit before then, and they were able to score a touchdown, make it 21-19, and then get that field goal, as you mentioned. But that's what we haven't seen from them, and that was a challenge when that time came. He threw some of those picks in the first half as well, but it was also like, hey, we're going to go into the shotgun. We're not going to do like play action passing. We're like, part of their offensive game plan was we're going to show a different type of passing game than we show a lot of the time. We're going to actually do like some shotgun, like spread it out a little bit more and throw against these guys, something they won't be expecting. I mean, Darnold's first pick is, I don't even know what he could have possibly been seeing. He's got a completely covered player, and then another defender swoops in for the interception. His second one is so late on an out that the defender catches it like completely squared up like a punt. I mean, it wasn't a high throw, but it like he's undercuts the out pattern. It's not like he has to reach in front of the receiver to catch it. He undercuts it with his whole body. The third one, Greg Olsen defended him on and said it was maybe Elijah Arroyo's fault because Darnold's trusting his tight end to cross the face of the safety. He went through a whole point there. Olsen, obviously a former tight end. I'll trust his word on that. But it's another one where the safety catches it very cleanly. I still felt like that was asking a lot of Arroyo to fight through that and get in front of that safety there. That safety was reading his eyes and got there. But again, I will trust Olsen on that. And then the fourth one is again, just like it was late. I'm trying to read my notes here as I'm saying this, but I'm pretty sure it was like a very easy one. The way I wrote it was like there are these turnover worthy plays I've talked about before, like PFF grades them, and then there are the ones that are like the obvious mistakes that are like 90% likely to be a turnover. And you watch a lot of football like I do, you know there's a difference there. There's balls that get put into harm's way, and there's balls that like sometimes they do get dropped, and you're like, holy crap, that's crazy the defender didn't catch that. But sometimes you see a quarterback throw a ball, and you're like, that's terrible. That's an easy interception. It's right to the defender. It's
then
not
the
just
game
a
that you didn't watch
play.
Featured a young QB making that type of throw 16 times.
16 times. I know. I haven't seen the Ravens Browns. I did see that Shedeur Sanders made his debut. So don't spoil it for me. The thing I don't know yet is if that's what got Gabriel benched or if that's what we saw from Sanders after he came in. I'm excited to find out. I'm guessing it's what got Gabriel benched. But yeah, I mean, the Darnold does the in-structure stuff well, and he makes the throws he needs to make, and he's been doing that very well all season, so I don't want to harp on it too much. But this is the other side of that. This is the point I've been trying to make all year, as you said. And because I've been trying to make that point without any evidence, like I did want to say that tonight. Like this was what I've been trying to say, what we just saw.
Well, and so many different teams are dealing with injuries, so it's not like you say, oh, the Seahawks are missing some niche rookie. That was the thing that cost him the game. But you look here where Barner has 11 targets. He catches 10 passes. Obviously, he's playing well, but that's not ideal. You've made the trade for Rashid Shaheed. And, I mean, that's a situation where all the talk is about how he already knows the offense. But it's not as simple as already knowing the offense. You don't have the rapport with the QB. He has not made an instant impact, and I think it was unfair to expect that he would. Cooper Kupp is sadly done. Not having Torrey Horton here to be, the Robin character to JSN really does limit what the Seahawks can do, because when they made that decision to get rid of DK Metcalf, I mean, they were going to have games like this where once the Rams are like, double, triple team, JSN, whatever you need to do, which they basically did until the end, where they leave him free to run these short out patterns where he's just gobbling up yards and get them to the edge of field goal range. That part was a little bizarre. If they had simply continued to play tougher coverage on him, you don't probably get that field goal at the end to potentially win it. I'm excited to see what Torrey Horton will eventually be in this offense. He's one of those young guys where if this was a team that passed 44 times a game like they did today, and Horton is somebody who I think would be on everyone's radar as a potential, breakout star.
In the third quarter, Shaheed had his first catch. I did use him as a running back for the second straight game to get the ball in his hands. He had his first catch for 21 yards. A few plays later, he was open deep, and Darnold just underthrew it, and Emmanuel Forbes got back into the play, made a pretty nice play to tip it away. But, I mean, that's the kind of throw that Darnold usually makes pretty well, I think. I mean, like, usually you're in structure, you're on time, your receiver got, one on the route. He usually delivers that pretty well. Not quite as well in the deep stuff. I was frustrated with it with Addison a couple times last year where he would underthrow those a little bit, hang them up there, not get him out there for his speedster. That was the issue here as well. But he tends to throw those routes pretty effectively. I mean, we've seen it with JSN all year this year. And you mentioned the JSN catch. That was a well-thrown ball, but JSN makes that one-handed catch look so easy. And it's one of those things I always talk about is one of the hallmarks of the greatest receivers is that they make the hardest plays look like they're so easy that you don't even realize how great they were. But, that was such a fantastic catch. It was really far out there. It wasn't like he went one-handed because he just wanted to or something. He really needed to extend for that ball to bring it in like that. You see the whole sideline. He's right in front of his sideline. They go nuts. They're like, wow, how did you catch that? That's one of those balls where you're like, a tough break off your fingertips kind of thing, but you don't think he should have caught it. He snatched it like it was nothing, and then he just kind of turned and walked back towards the huddle, and it was like, all right, well, you're going to just make that look like you're playing with a Nerf ball. That's pretty sweet. But, Darnold missed Shaheed on his one chance at a big play. But, he only had 5 targets, 2 catches, 27 yards. One of those, the 6-yard catch, was right before the 61-yard field goal. The Rams did kind of a cool play. Olsen broke it down where they knew that it was a quick throw and a timeout with only 5 seconds. And so they dropped their entire defensive line back. They rushed nobody. They weren't trying to get a sack. The ball had to be out. They dropped 11 guys. And Darnold, to his credit, immediately sees all these guys dropping in the middle of the field and gets over to Shaheed and finds the one guy that's open and gets the throw to where it can be completed in 4 seconds. I mean, I thought that was pretty good. You're kind of shrugging.
Well, I mean, he did look surprised and then starts to roll. And I'm like, I don't think he can roll. Then he double pumps. I'm like, I don't think you can double pump. But then it worked. And so it was.
It was certainly unexpected. And he was still able to get the ball to somewhere it needed to be in 4 seconds. I mean, and they got the timeout in. But yeah, that was a really, really fun game schematically, all of those things. And yet, I mean, I took the under at stealing lines. A lot of people were really jazzed about it. I kind of expected that we would get some of this stuff where these two offenses have been really rolling, but now you get them playing not against defenses that are just matching 3 tight ends with base and they're like not understanding the advantage that they're giving the play caller. Instead, you're getting 2 teams that know how to battle this sort of easy button stuff that these offenses were running. And I think that's why you saw a little bit of the stumbles from these offenses was that the defenses knew what the offenses are doing and how they're doing it and what they're trying to do. And so they've coached up their defenses. Look, these are the things we're going to do. This is how we're going to match it. Here's what we're going to allow them to do. When they go into 13, we're going to let them run, and then eventually we'll get the stop on the runs and they'll get into a 3rd down, and then we'll try to get that stop on that 3rd down. I mean, that's the big reason why teams do want to pass. You can get more explosives. You don't have to do so much of the matriculating and all of that stuff. But yeah, I mean, Kyron ran well, as you were saying, and the Rams did still run effectively. Yeah, anything else on this game?
Just quickly reiterating that I'd like to see more Kenneth Walker. He does go over 100 yards from scrimmage. He has a highlight catch on top of everything else. 3 catches to 44 yards. He has the rushing touchdown. I mean, maybe if he plays more, you win this game. And again, with Kenneth Walker, what you're talking about is that back who's so explosive that he has the game-changing element that a more efficient back, even when they are efficient. Now, Charbonnet was not in this game, but even when they are, doesn't move the needle quite as much. I think there's a potential here for some of these teams rotating backs that they are outthinking themselves. You contrast that with the San Francisco 49ers, who in a game that they're up by like 3 touchdowns, have Christian McCaffrey out there with under 5 minutes to play so they can get him yet another touchdown.
That was weird. Christian McCaffrey, like the most injury-prone superstar. He's basically the number 1 running back in fantasy or hurt each of the last 6 years. Why do you have him out there with 5 minutes left when you're up by 20 points? He already has 2 touchdowns.
I think it's because the 49ers are a team that they suffer so few injuries that it doesn't even occur to them that their players could get hurt. I mean, this team is just immaculate over the last 5-6 years. Their guys never get hurt.
They never get hurt. Sorry, I thought you were serious for a second. I mean, you have McCaffrey missing all of last year. Purdy returning today. Ayuk's been out. Pearsall's been out. Kittle was on IR for a stretch this year already. I mean, God, what kind of decisions are you guys making? Like, you already dominated this game to such a degree of no concern, and you still leave everyone out there. You dominated this game to such a degree that Jacoby Brissett threw 57 times for 452 yards. Michael Wilson, 15 catches, 185 on 18 targets. It looks like just an absolute phenom line. But, I mean, he had a great game. But it's a big part of it is that they threw 57 passes.
Can you imagine if you have – like if you're a dynasty manager – and you were so excited last year, you drafted a ton of Marvin Harrison, things are finally starting to turn around a little bit, or you drafted him at his very affordable price this season, and the game that he misses is the one where Jacoby Brissett sets the all-time NFL record, I believe, this is what the broadcast was saying, with 47 completions. Now, I've got my Arizona Cardinals hat on. I believe that in the same game, Jacoby Brissett completed more passes than any other QB in NFL history. Again, that may be wrong, but I'm passing it along. Also, I believe set the franchise record for penalties was 17 for 130. If there's a team that has more trouble lining up and running a play than the Chiefs, then it's the Arizona Cardinals, or sadly, it's the Minnesota Vikings. You mentioned at the top that this was a weird day. I was saying that the contact penalty on the Broncos was very real. You probably have to call that. There were so many penalties today. We're like, just let it go. Like, just let it go. And again, I'm begging you to change the rules. This is a funny one, though, because it's not impossible to follow the rules. The 49ers had one penalty for 15 yards. The Arizona Cardinals had 17 for 130.
What was the one
Brissett's
of the
probably
Vikings?
like, every time my guys don't line up properly, I just end up throwing that many more passes in the game.
What was the Viking one what was the penalty that shouldn't have been called?
No, I think that the penalties on the Vikings are all real. They should all be called, but we should just like make the rules simpler for teams that are being helmed by JJ McCarthy, or if the right tackle is Jawan Taylor, just in order to good sportsmanship. Let's make the rules simpler. Like let Jawan Taylor line up 10 yards in the backfield. And just
the last few weeks in my notes, I've been doing like a little top line thing to try to think of some things that are important to mention on the show. I did that today, and I have a couple there, like Sean Tucker, who's still tilting me so much, but just purely because why did they not use him earlier, like you were saying? Like, I mean, there's a reason that I did think it was going to happen, and it's mostly because you have not done it yet to this point, and yet you decide that now's the time. Now was as good a time as any. But no, the other one
is the Michael Wilson thing. Sorry, is the Michael Wilson thing like Rico Dowdle, where like he's going to be one of the 10 best receivers in the NFL?
Yeah, I don't know, maybe
because he, similar to Dowdle, had like no track record even coming into the NFL.
I don't think so, because I think he doesn't really earn like targets per route and stuff, and I think the reason he did was just a lack of competition in that particular role. But as soon as Marvin Harrison's back, like he gets the like X receiver boundary targets, and then he has to get all of them. And then like McBride's still going to get his, and Greg Dortch's still going to get his, like closer to the line of scrimmage. And so I really think like this stat line, to your point about the Marvin Harrison owners, like they're right to be bad. The stat line was just Marvin Harrison's.
He had 18 targets today. There's a hilarious element to this where Trey McBride was double and triple teamed throughout this game. You think like this is the best player, you got to stop him. The touchdown that he scores late is into maybe the smallest window that we've seen a touchdown pass thrown into all season. Jacoby Brissett played unreal football in this blowout loss. The passes he was throwing were crazy. Trey McBride, 10 for 115 and 1. Then in most cases, if you go through like any stretch in the season and you draw 11 out of 57, 11 targets on 57 passes, people are like, man, you cannot command targets. But that was just the line for Trey McBride in one game.
11 for 57. Wait, you can't command targets? That's still like slightly below 20%. That's not terrible. But yeah.
It's not good for Trey McBride.
It's not good for Trey McBride. He's the one who should have had 18 targets. That's very true. JJ McCarthy is so bad was the other top line thing. I tried to, like I started, because the way that I write up games, I kind of, give examples of plays and stuff. And so I started to catalog like some of his bad throws in my notes. And like I have an early one, like he missed Addison on about a 30-yard gain post corner as Brady was breaking down, and McCarthy just completely underthrew it. And then 2 plays later, he sails an open Justin Jefferson on third down the flat. Then third down the next drive is a post to Addison. It's a better throw, but it's wobbly. It's not a great spiral. It blows off Addison's fingers. The broadcast booth wanted it to have been caught. I thought it was a great example of not throwing the most catchable ball, even when it is catchable, like it's clearly catchable. Thielen had a similar one later, and Brady actually made a great point in the booth. He said, it would have been easier if it was a little more on his body or a little less miles per hour, which I don't think that's a sentence, but still effectively communicated the point that I've been trying to say about a guy like McCarthy is like, it looks like a drop, but it's really that he's just throwing a laser that's like not quite on frame, and it's a reach out and try to make a really tough play. And so like they showed a stat at one point, like the Vikings have 5 drops, and I'm like, that probably is because JJ McCarthy as well on the other side of that. But Sean, everything I just read you was one paragraph, and then the next paragraph I wrote, The number of missed throws I would need to write out is crazy. Also missed Hawkinson on a wheel that was a design pump and go thing, cover 2 hole. He just sailed it. Right before half, he had Addison a step behind the defender for a TD, underthrew it enough that it went for an INT, negating a chance even for a field goal try. Late in the third quarter, Brady is saying, got him during a play. McCarthy takes forever to throw it. Brady breaks down the routes in an all-22 replay and calls it dealer's choice, with Addison winning on an out and up and Jefferson also open, crossing underneath that. Throw to either of your 2 best players, but instead McCarthy waits and throws late. Arm gets hit, ball way underthrown, nearly picked off. And then, the other thing I noted was Addison did have a really bad drop in the flat a bit later. That was a real drop. But the rest of it, J.J. McCarthy's terrible. I mean, he missed like 8 throws that are wide open players. Kevin O'Connell is designing plays, getting guys schemed into so much space, and he's completely missing to where it's an uncatchable target, to where like this can't even go for, the stat packages out there that chart catchable and uncatchable targets. This can't even go down as a catchable target for a guy who has a defender nowhere near him in some cases. Or like there's a defender trailing on the one that I said where he underthrows him and he gets picked off. There's the one that Brady was going, got him in the middle of the play, and McCarthy's just hitching, doesn't throw the ball till he gets his arm hit. And they go back through the replay, and Brady's like, the ball's got to go out now. Ball's got to be out now. And it's like, who are you looking at? Both the receivers were open. He's so bad at football.
It was a kind of frustrating game. On the one side, you have J.J. McCarthy 16 for 32 for 150 yards and 2 picks. On the other hand, you have Caleb Williams 16 for 32, 193 yards. And really the only saving grace is that his passes were so far over everybody. I mean, this was kind of like the actual like arm talent version of what Patrick Mahomes was doing. You're like, is the whole point on all of these like not to get him intercepted because Roma Dunze is behind the defense for long touchdowns? Those balls are 15 yards beyond him. Now,
yeah, Caleb wasn't way better. That's very fair. I do think McCarthy's receivers were more open.
But he's got Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. And the first 2 drives, he could have thrown 4 50-yard touchdown passes to Jordan Addison, but he did not.
He didn't throw 1. Oh.
It is a situation here where if you're a Jordan Addison fan, you're frustrated that he didn't have 200 yards and 3 touchdowns at halftime. If you're a Justin Jefferson fan, you're frustrated that he drew 9 targets, but you knew that Jordan Addison was going to be the guy to score the touchdown to save his day at the end. Like there was no chance that would be Justin Jefferson. No chance. No, Jefferson has a drop in this game where he just goes crazy afterward. But you're not even sure if he's like blaming it on himself because it's a key third down. He's going across the middle. The ball is fired like faster than maybe I've seen anybody throw it, over his head and behind him. He gets both hands on it. It obviously sails through his hands. And like, is he frustrated on this? Is he mad at J.J. McCarthy? There were other third downs in this game where he's just running a simple out wide open. J.J. McCarthy throws it like to guys sitting on the sidelines. Mm-hmm. I think that this could possibly still work, right? J.J. McCarthy has not played a lot of football. He has great receivers. He's got an excellent head coach. Sometimes the light bulb goes on. But the whole thing that I was saying at this time a year ago, 18 months ago, that you probably cannot draft a player who just won the national championship and yet his team would not let him throw the ball. I mean, this is the same
you
thing.
Don't actually, when you said I think this could still work, I thought that was a real take, but that was just sort of your...
Well, no, I think it could because you have a wide range of outcomes type of situation here, and you've got a lot of arm strength.
But your
and
real
you're a very
analysis
young player who needs reps, right? I mean, you think about Jacoby Brissett and how unreal he looks. Because, Ben, he doesn't just look good. He looks unreal. The fact that the Cardinals are getting blown out in these games are because the overall roster is very, very poor.
Both of the picks he threw they weren't great, but he did play really well. Completed 47 of 57 passes, to your point. He set the NFL record for completions or whatever.
But every time that the Arizona Cardinals put their special teams on the field, like, this is going to be a touchdown for their team.
But your actual take on McCarthy is more that...
It could still work, but there's really no reason to believe it would because we don't have any data that says that. This is the Trey Lance situation where you have tools and you have won a national title the same way that Trey Lance did. But in that national championship game for Lance, he wasn't allowed. Like, the entire season, Trey Lance, when he wins the national title, was not allowed to throw passes. These things seem like very large red flags if you're being drafted into the NFL to throw passes. And again, like the window that Brissett threw into to get that touchdown pass. I mean, sometimes maybe it seems like we're joking. The window that he threw in to get that pass to Trey McBride was non-existent, right? You had the double team, you had the guys on both sides. Somehow the ball gets through. Somehow Trey McBride catches it in traffic.
Trey McBride comes across the face of the safety like Elijah Arroyo was supposed to, apparently, because I saw that game after and I was like, that's what Greg Olsen was talking about. There's a guy that goes in front of the safety and is like, I'm going to catch this damn ball.
You got to make throws into tight windows in the NFL. And if you were not asked to do it in college and there's not a lot of evidence that you can do it, it's tough to draft a player at that spot and then ask him to go do it. Even if you have the extensive background of someone like a Caleb Williams, who put all kinds of fantastic throws on tape and was sensational from the first moment he stepped on a college football field, it's tough, right? The 16 for 32, you have a bad drop by DJ Moore in this game. You have Luther Burden trying to turn the ball over even as he starts to actually look a little bit better.
What do you mean trying to turn the ball over? What did he do? I can't remember.
Oh, it was just a clear drop. It seemed like maybe he had dropped it and fumbled it. But this is another one where
that well thrown, that post, it slipped through his hands, but it kind of got poked out, but he juggled it. It was probably going to be a drop anyway, but Burden, we didn't see Olamide Zaccheaus in the whole game. We got to talk about this. So I said it at the top. I want to talk about Burden. I want to talk about Tootin because I haven't seen the snap share stuff, but I'm quite certain that Luther Burden just ran the most routes he has all season. He was in there early. He wasn't in there all the time because they did a lot more two tight end as well. The way that I'm reading this, I'll have to look at the routes and everything, but they basically took Zaccheaus' role and split it between Burden, mostly Burden, but also Loveland. They did more two tight end to get Loveland on the field more as well. I think his routes probably went back up.
But it is a dagger, right, for Colson Loveland to look pretty good the last couple of weeks and to come out and have Cole Kmet lead the team in receiving yards. Yeah,
that's tough. I will note, and I did write this in my notes, that most of the time when Kmet got a target, Loveland was on the field with him. It was just like Kmet was running the flat route from the blocking tight end position. Loveland's doing move tight end out of the two tight end formations. Loveland, I think, is running more vertical routes. Kmet's doing the block and release stuff into the flat, and that's basically what was there or whatever. He was just getting a lot of. I don't know. You're right. It's not great. But Loveland also had 4 targets in this game and was close to him in yardage, 45 yards, 40 yards. I thought Burton had a little bit of a better day. He only has 27 yards on 3 catches.
He was much more involved. I guess my question for you would be, how concerned are you about Caleb Williams at this point? I don't think that we're really, even though, again, I mentioned that Odunze was open deep for what would be a long touchdown. It will completely change his day, obviously, if you score that. He doesn't seem like a guy who has the mix of attributes to really elevate and be a true star within the context of this offense. It does still seem like the 2 guys they just drafted with Ben Johnson are eventually going to be those guys, although probably not this season, even for Loveland. Almost certainly for Burden, not this season. Although, again, the shortness of some redraft fantasy football tends to leave us with an impression of the regular season in the NFL that is more compressed than it actually is, right? We've got a lot of time to go here. Maybe Burden will end up being the guy. It certainly doesn't look like it's going to be DJ Moore, but can you run an offense that is multiple like this when you're trying to get these players involved if your quarterback just doesn't have the accuracy, or how much of it is simply Brian Flores, right? We have him keeping the Vikings in these games where you're getting quarterback play that is beyond the pale. They're in the game against the Ravens a week ago. They beat the Detroit Lions in a situation where the Lions probably still one of the better, if not best teams in football. They beat them because of the defense and what they're able to do to Jared Goff, which you had talked about at length on the show. I mean, this is a game where it really seemed like the Vikings needed to bench McCarthy, if not for the fact that they're probably not in that great a situation from a full season perspective, and they have to see what they have. But if he were a little bit further along, this was a Zach Wilson-esque performance where you're like, we just got to get to somebody else. It was that bad. They took the lead at the end of this game. And if not for an inability to cover the kickoff, would have won. That's how good the defense was. So how much of it is that Vikings defense and how much of it is Caleb Williams is just not really going to be – I think he's going to be a very effective player for fantasy for a long time, especially within the context of this offense. And the Bears are 7-3, right? But
I also think
he continues to look bad. And in this game, one of the reasons we played some guys, and one of the reasons why this game was so disappointing is that this game was in a dome while some other games were dealing with 20-mile-per-hour winds.
That's right. No, I think you asked great questions about whether it's Caleb or Brian Flores. I think it's tough. I was going to bring that up. Flores blitzes a ton. Caleb, I can't remember if he's good or particularly bad against a blitz. I think he's actually particularly bad against a blitz. But they didn't blitz him a lot in week 1. It was the lowest blitz rate of the year for Flores, which is probably just because it was week 1. I think they probably blitzed him quite a bit more in this game, riled him a little bit. The other part of what you were describing with the Vikings nearly winning this game goes back to, to me, it goes back to Kevin O'Connell. They talked to him at halftime. He made some comment about he's just trying to work with this quarterback. He understood the path to winning in this game was to get the most that he could out of McCarthy, who was playing horrendous. And I think he navigated that sort of as well as he could have, and navigated the time available and the whole all the game situations to very nearly steal a win. And then they get this big kick return and they show Kevin O'Connell on the sideline. And I don't think I've ever seen him that mad, but he did. They just showed him very clearly mouthing. It was either are you or you gotta be blanking kidding me. Very, very clearly. And like I said, not something I've seen from O'Connell a lot, but I think was probably the culmination of, hey, I navigated this whole thing and got us to a point where we're actually in a lead with the worst quarterback job that you could have ever seen. And then the kick return is going to win the game for him, basically. It basically is going to put them in field goal position. I have to trust this, my special teams coach and the special teams unit to do their job there, which we've talked about this a million times. That this is happening around the league and it's very important in the modern NFL in these key spots in the late game stuff that, hey, you got to cover these kicks or you're gonna lose because of it. It's a huge thing right now. They did not do it, and I'm sure that's the one thing in the back of his mind was can we just please cover this kick? And instead, the Bears were able to return it to field goal range and essentially very close to field goal range and hit the field goal. That happened in another game late today as well. Oh, you said you haven't seen the Tootin thing yet. The only thing about the Tootin thing is just that he played a lot. It's exciting. He got 5 first quarter carries. You mentioned that you saw they score a touchdown. Etienne was still playing some, but it was nice to see Tootin. They wanted to get him involved. This was that game. There was a health thing at the end, and I didn't see it in the watch, so I'm a little nervous about it. But it didn't seem like it was major because it wasn't like he was down on the ground or anything, So anyway, he looked fun, which I'm spoiling for you, but I want to mention to the audience, and I've already mentioned it, so I've already spoiled it for you. But it was really cool to see. It was cool to see the usage for him. This is kind of the thing that we've talked about, that it could come quick for some of these players where they get a lot more snaps. I thought that was the deal with Burden. You don't seem as optimistic. They still did a lot of the 2 tight end stuff, and that was like a Dunze DJ Moore with Loveland Kmet and no Burden. I didn't see Zaccheaus until the second half, and even when we finally did see Zaccheaus, it was in 2 tight end stuff, 2 receivers, and he was out there with Burden for a couple snaps in a row. So they had taken both Moore and Dunze off for a brief, stretch, and we're doing 2 wide receiver stuff with Burden and Zaccheaus, which is essentially even more confirmation that Zaccheaus is just now the wide receiver 4 and will rotate in when the other guys need a blow. I thought that was pretty exciting for Burden.
have a lot of him think that the handful of plays that we have seen there haven't been many plays, Ben, but they haven't been the complete manufactured touch types of plays that I think people were concerned would be all that Burden would be involved with. And certainly his strongest advocates were insistent that he would be able to do that. He did a lot of it his second to last season there at Missouri. You have a big time athlete. I'm hoping it comes through there. As we close out today, we're going to do a little shorter one tonight because there were so many games, because we got to get you ready to write tomorrow, even in the face of some frustrating results. Mason Rudolph rallying the Pittsburgh Steelers to a blowout victory over the Bengals.
That's where we're closing. Mason Rudolph he did fine dumping it off to Kenneth Gainwell. They get what do they get? They get a pick six and a fumble return touchdown. I mean, I think that's the bigger thing that I'm gonna say the defense rallied the troops to the win despite Mason Rudolph being in there.
They did look good. Kenneth Gainwell, 7 for 81 and 2 touchdowns. So if you're playing a lot of Gainwell today, it worked out nicely for you.
We played him. Me and Leone and Pat and Pete and our 5K team played Kenneth Gainwell today.
I hope he carried you to the victory.
It's a Cam Scatabo team. It's a really good team. It's Christian McCaffrey and Puka Nacua, but we do not have a running back two. Been waiting on Tootin or Brashard Smith or whoever. Played some Singletary, Keaton Mitchell on this roster, but today we went with Kenneth Gainwell and he crushed. So that's good.
He did.
That's the secret to fantasy, Shawn, is just don't have good players and then play the not very good players. And then sometimes they're going to catch 7 passes for 81 yards and 2 receiving touchdowns, even though they're a running back, and they're going to give you 30 points. If I was playing against us, I would be so mad that, like, your team's so bad that you had to play Kenneth Gainwell, and then you got 30 points from that. Like, isn't that like the most tilting thing? I mean, come on.
Is it as bad as hearing Arthur Smith get credit for so effectively including Kenneth Gainwell and Darnell Washington in the game plan today? Really, knowing the personnel that you have been and taking the best advantage of them, I'm sure that's small consolation for DK Metcalf and Pat Freiermuth, managers.
How about that Darnell Washington play where he just bulldozed over 3 guys, though? If you haven't seen that yet, dear listener, Google Darnell Washington bulldozes 3 Bengals. I bet it'll come up. I'm sure there's already a clip out there. He stiff-armed the first guy. He ran over and he just was tossing people like a tape.
He was tossing people. That's the only way to say it. He was tossing these guys. The tackling on, I believe, Kenneth Gainwell's first touchdown. I said a couple weeks ago, Ben, that I felt bad to say it, but the Cincinnati Bengals had the worst defense that I'd seen in my entire life. There was a play in this game where the tackling was worse than any other tackling from the Cincinnati Bengals this season, which is not something I thought I would say. 2 weeks later, 34-12 for the Steelers. If you have Joe Burrow and you're like, it's 2 weeks away, I would be a little bit concerned at this point that the Cincinnati Bengals are 3-7. But there was a play in this game. The Cincinnati Bengals were down in this game, and they were running out the clock on themselves, and they were calling penalties because they couldn't get the plays in. And there was a moment where Zach Taylor had not gotten the play into Joe Flacco so many times in a row while they were trailing and while they're calling second half timeouts. Where it's like, the call has to come down from the owner, like whatever the communication is to the sideline, like the in-game firing has to happen right here.
I'm ready for it. I've been ready for it. Sorry, I'm watching the Darnell Washington play. I mean, it's just so good.
He goes 4 for 67 in this game. Arthur Smith, give us a game where Darnell Washington catches 15 passes like Michael Wilson today, has literally like 33 broken tackles. That would be the thing that would be better than Jacoby Brissett completing 47 passes. 30 plus broken tackles for Darnell Washington in one game.
I mean, he might have already done that. I've never complimented Arthur Smith ever. You can check the tape. On like a 3rd and 17, his play call was to just like throw short to Darnell Washington and dare them to tackle him, and they got 18 yards and converted it. And I was like, that's brilliant. I mean, that is, if you have Darnell Washington, he's already God. He's tough to take down. Nobody actually, like, he's that big. Even NFL players are like, all right, business decision. It's 3rd and 17. They're all like, well, we'll give him a little bit of space, give him a few yards, and then we'll eventually take him down. But he ends up converting. I mean, it's a fantastic play call. Throw 3 yards downfield and gets 15 yards after the catch.
And the Bengals didn't want to tackle 190-pound Kenneth Gainwell. You can imagine what they felt about trying to tackle 275-pound Darnell Washington. Yeah, this was a game. I think if you were a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs, which I know that only applies to people in Kansas City because it should only apply to people in Kansas City. You can't root for the behemoth if you don't grow up there. But I think they're also losing Kansas City natives at this point. And yet, if you are a Chiefs fan, you can be encouraged by the fact that the AFC North is only going to have one playoff entrant this season. Yeah. Interesting.
Why is that? Because they won't be able to tackle them, or?
Well, the Pittsburgh Steelers and Baltimore Ravens, despite the Ravens' recent, and I don't think I'm giving this away. I'm sorry if I'm ruining this Ravens Browns barn burner.
I don't care.
Myles Garrett, I mean, one of the most extraordinary human beings, even within the context of the extraordinary athletes in the NFL, but it is mostly him. Ben, the Steelers and the Ravens are competing to win the North while being under 500. That's the way this division is playing out.
Yeah, but why does that have, what does that have to do with the Chiefs?
Well, the Chiefs, if they win some games, there is going to be that last wild card spot still very much.
I understand. They need that just to make the playoffs. That's what you're saying.
No, yeah, that's what the Chiefs are with this pick, right? It's now a situation where we didn't trade our 3rd round pick for Breece Hall in part because we're going to miss the playoffs, and that 3rd round pick is not going to be where you guys are saying it's going to be. It's like by not making that trade, not only do we not lose our 3rd round pick, but we've made all the rest of our selections more valuable. So the joke is on you.
Can you imagine the audacity of not acquiring a skill position player? I don't care what position he plays. A skill position player of Breece Hall's ball in hand ability, when the guys that touch the ball the most for you today are Kareem Hunt and Travis Kelce. I mean, for a 3rd round pick, like, just have somebody that can create with the ball in his hands, other than, Rashee Rice can. Xavier Worthy can when they get him in space.
Well, I don't know about you, but when I was watching Christian McCaffrey shockingly score his 3rd touchdown in garbage time, the other thing I was thinking beyond why is Christian McCaffrey in a garbage time was the trade for Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers really aged poorly, didn't it?
Yeah, and they gave up like 17 times more than the Jets were asking for. I think they gave up like a 2nd and a 3rd and like a player or something. I can't remember exactly, but it was quite a bit. And yet, yeah, I mean, people like to do the, Christian McCaffrey's a wide receiver thing, and he kind of is. But Breece Hall can play in the passing game as well. And I mean, 3rd round, they used a 2nd round pick to draft him, and he's been a hit. I understand like he's going to eventually require more capital, but like running back contracts aren't expensive. They're not that much more expensive than you have to pay for a 2nd round pick in general. That's the whole point about why you don't draft running backs in the 1st round, is like they have to perform as they immediately get a top 5 contract at the position, which is to say separately that when you do have to pay a running back a second contract, it's typically not. I mean, a lot of the second contracts do end up getting a little bit absurd, but I mean,
well, the length that they were going to control Breece Hall very clearly came into play. It was the most significant thing here.
Yeah.
But when you're the Chiefs and you've made 3 consecutive Super Bowls and you are in the mix to miss the playoffs, despite in many ways having built a stronger overall team than the 3 Super Bowl teams, those games that you would control him for are the games that matter. And I would emphasize again that this is a team that traded a first-round pick for Orlando Brown and paid him because they had to do both, and then eventually got tired of paying him because he wasn't worth what they had given up to acquire him. And then their solution to that was to pay $80 million to Jawan Taylor. Right? So this idea that these offensive line positions are more important than the running back position, there is merit to those things. But this idea that we get when we're breaking down all of these positions in isolation, and you lose track of the fact that football is 11 on 11, and that there are interaction effects between the different players. And, we go back all the time to Jamal Charles. The season he was out, the Chiefs graded out abysmally on the offensive line. All of those seasons around it with the same players, the Chiefs grade out the superstar offensive line. Instead of constantly chasing and making all of these mistakes with your offensive line moves, why not simply put out a running back who can keep defenses honest so that your offensive line doesn't look so bad, right? Does that eliminate the fair and accurate arguments that certain offensive line positions are more important than the running back, globally speaking? No, it doesn't invalidate that. But if you don't understand that globally speaking does not solve the Chiefs' individual issue at this point in time, then you're going to continue to do things like spend $80 million for Jawan Taylor and not trade for Breece Hall, and just continue to pass on these guys when they come up available in the drafts, simply because you picked Clyde Edwards-Helaire when Jonathan Taylor was available, and you never want to make that exact same mistake again. The Chiefs are not a team that can approach their personnel moves by looking at their mistakes and saying, oh, we can't make that exact specific mistake again. You got to go out and get someone who can play that position.
I'm looking at the running back contracts right now. There's not a single contract. This is not guaranteed. This is like the inflated number. There's not a single contract that's more than $50 million in total value at the running back position. There's not one that's more than $36 million in guaranteed, which was Saquon Barkley. Ashton Genty is actually the second most in total guaranteed at 35.895 because he was drafted so high. But the reason I was looking at this is I was trying to figure out what would it cost to tag Breece Hall. Maybe they can't tag him. Maybe they have to save the tag for somebody else. I don't know. But he's a free agent after this year. But if they would have traded for him, could they have just tagged him? Would that have caused a huge issue? What would have happened? Probably they would have had to discuss guaranteeing a good chunk of money to him, and maybe they just don't have that. Obviously there's more to this than I understand, but I was sitting here trying to figure it out, Shawn, and I was like, in my head, I know you're a big Arrested Development fan, and I couldn't think of the quote. It's been a long time since I've watched it, but I was thinking of the mom with the quote. She's like, how much can a banana cost? What did she say? $10 or something like that? Or is that $100? How much can a banana cost? $100? And I'm like, how much could it cost to franchise a running back? $10 million? I was trying to figure it out. I think it's maybe a little bit more than $10 million, but not that much more. Just trade for Breece Hall, franchise him for a year. You get him for a year and a half. All that really matters is the playoff. You get him for 2 playoff stretches, although it's not going to matter for you this year because you're no longer going to be going. You guys are 5-5 now. And you won't even play the players that have a chance to be good on your team. You just keep playing the bad ones. Anyway, the Chiefs are maddening. I'm not in Kansas City, and I kind of do like watching them, mostly because I have to draft a million Chiefs onto my fantasy team because I play with you. But no, just kidding. We don't draft that many. But I do want them. I enjoy the Chiefs. I don't know why. I enjoy Patrick Mahomes. I never really was a big Patriots guy during their dynasties. I understand why people don't like the dynasties. I do think one of the things I saw popped up on my phone in like my random news feed, and it was like fans are mad that Patrick Mahomes did a thing after a sack or something. And so I clicked on it and I was like, I wonder what this is about. And it was one of those posts, it was one of those like aggregation things that just pulled in social media posts. And it was all about Mahomes getting sacked, and it was a clean sack, and he like pointed to his head and he wanted a roughing the passer or something. And everyone has done this with Mahomes, that he's like such a crybaby. He's constantly, and he does kind of whine to the refs. But part of the reason he whines to the refs is he's a veteran who's been around long enough and knows the calls that get made. And so he's aware enough to be like, was that a call? There's been a million veterans who have, we've done this before, but like Phillip Rivers used to complain more than anyone. Tom Brady used to yell at refs. He used to get in their faces and scream at them. And I don't remember people being like, "Oh my God," the way that they are with Mahomes. Like one of the quotes in this article or the social media post was like, Patrick Mahomes complains so much it's made rooting for greatness a chore. And I was like, because he could talk to the refs. Have you guys watched the NBA? Have you ever watched the like Major League Baseball? Everyone's constantly talking about balls and strikes, both the pitcher and the hitter. Every sport, there's constant interaction with the officials. And in football, every other quarterback. Josh Allen does it all the time. Last week, he threw his head back when he slid, and then he was laughing about it. He was trying to draw a personal foul on a slide. If you push Josh Allen a step out of bounds, he falls down every time, which Mahomes does too. I'm not saying that Mahomes doesn't, and Mahomes does it worse. I will also say that. I love Josh Allen as well. I'm not trying to throw Josh Allen under the bus. Buffalo fans, don't come at me. It's just the thing with Patrick Mahomes is honestly it's just that they're on national TV too much, and people just see too much Patrick Mahomes, and they don't watch enough football. Like every effing quarterback does. Like Joe Flacco doesn't do it. That guy doesn't talk.
I love the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'm tired of watching them. I didn't want to watch them today.
Mahomes, is it because of Mahomes?
No. But I did want to note that he put a defensive back on the ground again today as he was going out of bounds. Thoughts?
Yeah. No, he runs guys over now. And no one's like, oh, man, I love that he's tough. I mean, I don't know. The Mahomes thing.
Well, it's like you're going to be maybe a little bit nervous about hitting me as I go out of bounds. But I know that I'm still in, and you can't hit me, so I'm going to hit you.
Oh, you thought it? Oh, you thought it was a little bit cheap.
I mean, it's borderline. The Bills win 44-32 today, and it looks in the final score like they maybe dominated this game, but they did not. They had really soft calls, extended drive before half, and the drive that put them ahead. And they were accurate calls, but they were really soft, right? Much softer than the illegal contact in the Chiefs game. And so, I mean, again, if you are not a Bills fan, those types of things are going to be frustrating. But also, as you note, if you get those calls, like Patrick Mahomes arguing for, it completely changes the game, right? And the goal of these guys is to win, not to make the opposing fans happy.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Mahomes does complain for calls, but my point is, like, again, that's why I said, like, do you watch NBA? Like, it's the players that know what gets called, usually that have, like, high usage rates in the NBA, the stars, like, they know, and so they want the calls that they're used to getting, right? It's the best hitters that know the strike zone the best that will show the most, like, incredulity when there's a ball. Like, it's like, that's just not a good pitch. You called it a strike. I know the strike zone. That pitch was high. That pitch was outside. I wasn't trying to like pick on Allen either. I just think fans should shut the F up about it. Like, who cares? Just let them try to like you said, their job is to win. If the referees are going to throw a flag, I mean, receivers throw their hands up or want flags on pass interferences all the time. It's just very common. These guys are playing a really aggressive game. Quarterbacks are basically hunted every snap. There's a reason that these guys get happy feet and the process speeds up and stuff, and they have these internal clocks because they get absolutely rocked if they take too long. It's a stressful position, I imagine, to play. The end of a play after you get absolutely lit up, if you want a penalty or you point to your head or something like that, like, man, just like you're like, enjoy watching football for what it is. Like, why are you letting yourself get worked up over that? I'm letting myself get worked up over how stupid it is that people Some stupid app on my phone is writing an aggregation article about oh my God, Mahomes is a baby. Like, no, he's not. Watch more football. Watch more sports in general. They're just competitors. They know that the refs are, subjective, and they're trying to influence them. Coaches do it in every sport. Like, just get over it. Stop freaking tweeting about like Patrick Mahomes asking for a flag. It's exhausting. It's so much more annoying than Patrick Mahomes asking for a flag to comment on it and say that it's a chore to watch football because he asked for a flag. Get over yourself. Sorry.
Having said all of that, it is fun that Travion Henderson has given the Patriots their Jahmyr Gibbs, as we were saying all along that he would. It is fun that the Patriots are so much fun to watch. It's fun that the Bills were fun to watch today. And if you're not a Chiefs fan and you didn't like them going to the last 3 Super Bowls, I think it is very fair to dance on their grave a little bit as they fall to 5-5 today. And certainly for the Denver Broncos fan, you've got to be happy that Bo Nix, who has really not looked very good, did make just enough plays yet again to win.
Yes, he did. Shawn, fans should dance on their grave for being stupid, having bad players, trying to use the bad players, calling bad plays, not knowing how to line up. Their freaking tackle for 3 years has not figured out where to line up. All of that stuff. Their one player, their aging superstar tight end, runs into their first-round pick wide receiver on like the first snap of the year and separates his shoulder. Make fun of the Chiefs for all the dumb crap that they do on the field that's actually like kind of hilarious. Don't make me a fan of the Chiefs just because I have the devil's advocate streak, and you're so annoying about how you root against the Chiefs that now I just want to see them win despite you. Please just root against them in a way that will make me join forces with you. That's what I ask.
So Ben is joining forces with all of the legitimate Kansas City Chiefs haters, but not the Patrick Mahomes specific haters. We hope you enjoyed with us. We hope your team had Kenneth Gainwell, had Michael Wilson, had some of these blow-up performances. Maybe you had Shavers in there, scored some points for you. The Bills just benching everybody they have that's good and then putting it 44 points was easily the most fun thing of the day. They're like, why did we even put together a roster? Like, just get the practice squad guys out here and let Josh Allen actually play.
Well, they have James Cook. James Cook's actually pretty relevant to what they're doing.
He's pretty good, but he didn't score until after Johnson had already demonstrated that James Cook is almost irrelevant on that team as well. You know who doesn't play a lot there is Ray Davis. Ben, Josh Allen, Drake May, MVP candidates. I love Matthew Stafford. He is not one. Don't make him the front runner. This has been Stealing Bananas. Shawn Siegele, Ben Gretch. Check out Ben's work this week on stealing signals. We'd love to have you guys over at RotoViz. We love you. We'll talk to you soon.